Strolls through the sunflowers, blood on the dance floor, and projectile weapons galore, Texas Chainsaw 2022 is one hell of a shit show, and I'm not sure if I mean it in a good way. Welcome to the channel, my name is Oreg, and I like horror movies. The good, the bad, and the disgusting. Today we are talking about Netflix's Texas Chainsaw, which came out earlier this year, directed by David Blue Garcia and starring Sarah Yarkin, Elsie Fisher, and Jacob Lattimore. My mom said if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, so we won't talk about them. Mark Burnham playing the Leatherface was a hulking behemoth, and I loved his work portraying the character. I know that this movie has bad reviews, but I don't necessarily take critics' opinions too seriously most of the time. I prefer to make my opinions based on whether or not I had a fun viewing experience, especially from the horror genre. The movie starts with a fairly cut-and-dry callback to the intro of Tobe Hooper's 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I feel was done respectfully and sort of captured the gritty tone of the film. I don't want to get bogged down in the details too much, but I feel like it was worth pointing out. The first 2 minutes of the movie is fine. Great. Immediately, we get into my first problem of the film. Our car of young and ambitious idealists with the misfit younger sister make their way down from Austin, Texas to a small town called Harlow, where they encounter a couple of unsavory characters, with some very ham-fisted interactions that set the tone that our main characters absolutely do not fit in with this particular geolocation. We learn that the younger sister is a survivor of a school shooting, which I thought was done fairly respectfully and don't have any problems with. As an aside, it's a terrible crisis that I have no interest in politicizing, but it is a tragedy that school shootings have become a part of our culture. My thoughts go out to anyone who's been affected, and I hope all the young men in our country who are suffering can find opportunities to heal and value their lives as well as the lives of others. So, our crew find themselves in the middle of this ghost town and start to set up for the investors that are coming to basically gentrify this shell of a downtown area. Honestly, this set piece is very weird to me. It feels authentically like part of Texas, but the buildings look like a studio backlot. So are there studio backlots in Texas? Was part of this movie shot in Burbank? Anyways, so we meet this lady who hasn't moved out of her house yet. She's like an orphanage, and she's like, oh my god, no, what are you doing here? And the rambunctious unit of a young adult entrepreneurial influencer world changers bully this lady and tell her that she doesn't own her house anymore. She starts freaking out and has a heart attack as a result of the unsavory confrontation. And we meet Big Leatherface unmasked, and he's like, oh my god, no, my foster mom, gotta follow her in the police van. Because all the police drive vans in Harlow, and luckily, I guess they're also the paramedics. Would have taken them more for Chevy Silverado kind of cops, but no worries, the van is fine. So, let me introduce you to another major problem that I have with this movie. We see Sally Hardesty at the beginning, right? You kind of get a glimpse of the character whose name I didn't even remember despite seeing the original film a handful of times, and the actress they get to play her is fairly old. Leatherface, in the original film, surely would have been older than this teenage girl in the original film. Also, the orphanage has a picture that says 1975 with the big hulking Leatherman in the back of the photo with his face scratched out. So he was a kid in the original film? He looked like a beast of a man. Gunnar Hansen was 27 at the time when the movie came out, which would put Leatherface around the age of like 75 in this movie. But let's just say that we assume he was fucking 15 in the original, which is a stretch of the imagination for me, but fine. That puts this character at age 63 in this movie. At least the new Halloween films have the shape moving around like a dude in his 60s, probably because he's portrayed by James Jude Courtney, who is 65. If Mark Burnham, the actor playing Leatherface in the 2022 Texas Chainsaw, is in his 60s, then that dude can fucking move. Or he had a younger stunt double. Either way, too many questions. It causes problems for me. And not the kind of problems that maybe I should have with this film. Moving on. We got the girlfriend of the Dante guy going in the van with the lady and the Leatherman and the cops, and one cop's in the back, and the lady dies and the big leather Hulk loses his shit. There is a lot of gore in this movie. Maybe I'm a little overly sensitive. Maybe I've, gotten more sensitive in my older age. As a lifelong horror fan, I've seen, some of those gnarly, grotesque French films from the mid-2000s, which are obviously much worse than this, and, I was sensitive to those too at the time, but yeesh, I don't know what's going on with me. This movie has some gnarly moments. I love the tension in the sunflower field. I love the girlfriend whispering over the radio in the voice where you're talking, but nothing's really coming out due to panic and terror. I thought that was really cool. Then we get the backstory of the younger misfit sister with the hillbilly dude, and they have a moment, and she wants to leave because she's not close to her friends. They're 7 hours away, and the older sister feels like she has to protect the younger sister, yada, 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 whatever. Leatherface shows back up to the house. The older sister's in the house looking for the deed to the house where they forcefully evicted the woman, And there's like a big, one of those cat and mouse scenes. Hillbilly Rick shows up, tries to see what's going on. He meets his demise in a very gruesome way. I think this is where I think this is where this movie shines. There's a lot of creativity in the way that Leatherface hurts and kills people. Try anything and you're canceled, bro. This is probably my favorite line of the year so far. Who are we supposed to empathize with in this film? Who am I rooting for? It seems like this movie couldn't decide on how they wanted to perceive the characters who we are supposed to be hoping actually survive. It's like there were two writers and one actually wanted protagonists and the other one was slyly kind of hinting like, well, gentrification actually disproportionately affects groups of color, and while Leatherface isn't colored, I think it would be neat to use him as a symbol for the oppressed or differently abled, or some shit like that. Because that's the actual feeling that is conveyed during the second act. You want all these fucking people on this bus to get slaughtered. They don't belong, and there's a sense of justice served the way this visual narrative plays out. I'm just being honest, I can't watch this movie and help but feel like someone was fighting some demons and crafting a cohesive thematic narrative. Rednecks are bad, influencers and idealists are naive and deserve to die, serial killers are justified? I don't know, it's weird, man. Sally Hardesty shows up for the third act and gets put on a chainsaw pyre. I like the part where Leatherface flings her body off the chainsaw and she flies like 20 feet. I like a lot of things about this movie, honestly. In fact, I enjoy every time that Leatherface is doing Leatherface things. I think him wearing his foster mom's face is a little Norman Batesy, which at first I was turned off by, but as I let it ruminate, I actually think it's passable. There's a long, drawn-out fight scene between Leatherface and the two sisters where they take turns saving each other from him, and then, oh yeah, they beat him, haha, they get away. Like, oh yeah, woohoo, and then they turn on the autopilot on the Tesla, and they're like, let's go back home to Austin, except, oh wait, no, he grabs the older sister out of the passenger seat of the car, rips her out, and chops her head off, while the younger sister watches through the sunroof while they're driving away, and the autopilots just keep going, and then he does his little Leatherface chainsaw dance, and all is well in the world. What were your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm going all in on horror movie reviews. I'll be posting 3 videos a week, so if you like horror, go ahead and subscribe. I also have a blog where I talk about my experience learning about content creation, and I stream on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday evening, where I love to talk about movies and weird shit, and also play some video games too, so feel free to check that out as well. Links in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.